It's that time of the day. Yes, it really is. It's Talking Pints, my favourite part of the day. And I'm joined this evening by Camilla Tominey. Camilla, welcome.
Lovely to see you, Nigel.
Talking Pints.
Thank you very much.
Now, the first time we met, you were on the Sunday Express.
Yes.
And I used to pick up the Sunday Express, and you'd see political reporter Camilla Tominey, royal reporter Camilla Tominey.
Yeah.
I mean, how many jobs did you have at that newspaper?
I actually had 4, because I was political editor, royal editor, a columnist, and I wrote the leaders. And that was the kind of lean and mean machine that the Sunday Express was. God love it. And we came into contact, didn't we? Because I think we can pretty much say that 100% of Sunday Express readers were Brexiteers. I think my editor at the time, Martin Townsend, said they never had a letter from a Remainer in all of the time he was editor. He was there for about 17 years himself. So we sort of saw Brexit coming ahead of a lot of other broadcasters and journalists, right? Actually,
it was the Express newspaper group that came out for Britain to leave the European Union in 2014.
Yes.
Way before the rest of the press. And what was it like working for Richard Desmond?
An interesting experience. I mean, he had this reputation that preceded him. We didn't see him all that much, actually, on the newsroom floor. There was lots of talk about his, there's always talk, isn't there, about ownership and interference in editorial. And actually, I never really saw that. I had to interview him once because he gave a load of money to Moorfields. Yeah, and so I was sent with my notebook down and was slightly intimidated as a quite rookie reporter, sort of take notes. And I think I started calling him sir. And he said, "You don't need to call me that. You can call me Richard." I was like, I just thought I should show some respect, sir.
Well,
he was
extraordinary bloke.
Extraordinary bloke, obviously hugely successful bloke. Yeah. Not necessarily in a journalistic terms. Sometimes we had struggles over pay and things. Would you believe, Nigel? I even went with the NUJ and picketed. I went on strike. It wasn't very successful. Most people didn't go on strike. They just worked from home. But it was interesting times. It was just good being on a newspaper where the readership was extremely engaged in what we were saying. The paper meant everything to them. Yeah. Our Aunt Bessie, our standard reader, was kind of, a Brexit voting woman in her 60s living in Blackpool. And I felt that we were reaching parts that others didn't. So Brexit required us to travel the length and breadth of the country, actually finding out, like you do and GBNews does, of actually finding out what is being thought in outside the Westminster bubble, which is always
since
useful.
Then, of course, you've gone on to the Telegraph, but you've done television and LBC radio and all sorts of things. And, I mean, your job at the Telegraph, again, it's quite broad in a way, isn't it? Yeah. You write about a lot of different subjects. I mean,
I do the column, which I could write about anything. I've got to decide what I'm going to write it on for Saturday's paper tomorrow. And then I'm covering politics and royals. And actually, I'm exhausted.
Well, what a year.
What a year. What a 5 years. I mean, when you consider everything that's gone on. We were marvelling at it today because I had to obviously get up at the crack of dawn, binge watch all of the remainder of the Netflix documentaries. I'd like some sympathy for that.
Yeah, we'll come to that, don't worry.
It's a difficult job, but someone's got to do it, Nigel.
Well, I did say earlier on that I very much hope that our viewers and listeners didn't have to put themselves through it, because we'd ask experts who had.
Tell you what, just read my commentary in the Telegraph. You can even watch a video when I sum it all up. But so politics and royals, if something isn't going on in the building behind us, something's going on in the palace over there. Yeah. So there's never a dull moment. And actually, both beats, they engaged the readership. They're interesting. Lots has happened. Peaks and troughs, obviously covering the Queen's probably the biggest story I've ever covered in my whole career. Yeah. And I've been doing it for more than 20 years, having started out on local papers.
But clearly you're not busy enough. Because, no. Because on Sunday, the 8th of January, sitting in this very chair, in this studio, what are you going to be doing, Camilla?
So we're going to be doing a very punchy and personality-full, we hope, politics show over 90 minutes on a Sunday morning, taking on the competition.
Who for?
For you.
Oh, for GBNews. Oh, there we are. Yeah.
We all know that.
I gave you the chance to advertise the show.
I thought that was a given. I was here having a pint with you precisely to promote that purpose.
No. So you're joining GBNews. It'll be a Sunday morning programme.
Yeah. And we just want it to be informative and entertaining. We want it to be politics that packs a punch, but not necessarily full of strange gotcha moments where it's all about the presenter and not about the guests. There's some very serious issues for the politicians of this country to answer, and we want them to do that. We want to do it openly with debate and with audience participation, OK? This is the People's Channel, so we want the people to be involved in the questions we're answering and also in analysing some of the answers. So it's going to be jam-packed because we want it to be be pacey. We want to take on the competition. You know, for far too long, we've had this assumption, this kind of default that people will watch the BBC or Sky, and why should they when we could perhaps produce something even more interesting?
Well, that's absolutely what the channel's here to do, and I'm sure you'll add to it greatly. And no wonder you won the Multimedia Award for 2021, because you do all sorts of different media. But here's my other thought on this. You know, you're busy, you're ambitious, you're quite driven. You've got 3 kids.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about work-life balance. How does it all work?
What's that? Well, look, work-life balance, I think, I am a bit of a workaholic, but most journalists at the top of the game are. You have to be. You can't switch off. Stuff keeps on happening all the time that you need to react to. But obviously my primary role is as a mother, and that's important, but I think that kind of gives me a bit of a real-life perspective. I was thinking about the Netflix documentary and was discussing it with a few women in the office, and, you know, this perception of Meghan, and I feel like the world is divided into 2 types of women. Women that need to be helped into a ball gown and women who put the bins out. I'm probably in the latter category, and proudly so, Nigel. There's a sense to which I live a pretty real life, you know, running around, doing the school run in the morning and then coming in and writing stories about prime ministerial resignations in the afternoon. But that kind of keeps me grounded, I think.
And no boozing.
No boozing. Would you believe it? I've know you frown on this because I've had lunch with you.
I tease you about it. I don't frown on it at all. Because actually, the truth is that it suits some people and it's disastrous for others.
Exactly. I think I've written before that drinking makes some people unwind and others unravel. I would say I was in the latter category. Very sadly, and I've written about this as well, my mother was a chronic alcoholic and drank herself to death in 2001, aged only 54.
Wow.
So I kind of felt that I needed to break that cycle. I felt the apple perhaps didn't fall far from the tree. I wasn't a good drinker, not like you. I can't hold my pints, so I decided to just stop entirely. And in a way, you say about kind of work-life balance, that helps because I haven't really got time to be drunk or hungover, and I find that I'm more productive without the booze. I don't mind, by the way, if anyone wants to get slaughtered around me. I don't have an objection. I love going out. I love socialising. I don't want to be drunk.
Final thought from you. You know, you've worked for Conservative, whether big C or small C, newspapers. You hold those opinions yourself. Where's the Conservative Party going?
Nowhere at the moment. I mean, I'd be intrigued as to what you are planning, actually, with my journalistic hat on, Nigel, to what direction you might be going in terms of trying to hold their feet to the Tory flames, because we're sort of in this situation. Our readers hated Jeremy Hunt's budget. I mean, they loved Liz Truss's budget, but they didn't like the execution of it. I don't think they want those ideas to die. I think they're worried about Brexit and whether it has been done or whether it has been half-baked rather than a fully baked deal. And I think they worry about the future direction of the country. At the moment, they're facing a kind of Hobson's choice because they think that there's only a fag paper between Sunak and Starmer. And, you know, I don't necessarily think it's Labour's election to win. I think it's the Tories to lose because nobody's on their doorstep cheering for Labour right now. People are totally disaffected. It may be as well that just people want change. They've had 12 years of Tories and they've had enough.
And that pattern, that cycle does repeat, doesn't it, quite regularly?
But are you going to mount an opposition to all this?
I don't know. I mean, I've talked about it very openly many, many times. I'm very bruised by the 2015 general election. Very bruised by 4 million votes and 1 seat.
Yes.
Very bruised that in the seat in which I stood, they just cheated, wholesale, broke the law, were found guilty. And what happens? Someone gets a suspended sentence and the result stands. So for me, it's a big decision to take on the first past the post system. But I think whatever happens here, whatever I decide to do or not do, I think we're crying out for a party that does actually believe in smaller government, believes in the individual entrepreneurship, and we're a long, long way from it at the moment. But
do you think you can take people over the edge without the kind of promise of Brexit? Because I know you've talked about PR, but it's just not sexy as Brexit, is it?
I think, you know, I've got to ask myself, are we on the verge of a political revolution? Or is this just a moment in which the people are a bit disenchanted? I don't know the answer. You don't know the answer. But we're going to find out. And the fact that you're going to be helping us find out here on GB News, I take, Camilla, as a huge positive. And thank you for coming on Talking Pints.
Thank you very much. Cheers.